Hello, everyone. My name is Kristan Weisdack, and I am here again with another amazing special guest, LOIS MCGUIRE. She and I connected about a week and a half ago, and we share such a passion for educating our youth and helping them become more well-rounded individuals, but in a little bit different capacities, I would say. Lois, you've had a history as an assistant superintendent. You worked at the university level at Rutgers. You became not only an assistant superintendent, but a superintendent in the New Jersey school system. You've won best practice awards, excellence awards as a superintendent. And now after you've retired, you've written this great book series called Don't Be That Kid. And now you've written the series at home and at school. And I think it's really wonderful because it teaches so many of the fundamental skills that are missing from our educational system. So what I want you to do is if you can introduce yourself and talk a little bit about that transition from superintendent to author.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I started my career as a 4th and 5th grade teacher in Bayonne, New Jersey, and I loved it. I knew relatively early on that I wanted to become an administrator, went to Rutgers University and earned my doctorate in educational leadership, and ultimately went up the ranks in leadership positions in schools, became an assistant superintendent of schools in Bayonne, and then ultimately a superintendent in Kinnelon, New Jersey, which is Northwest New Jersey. I have to tell you, throughout my career, I always felt that we weren't spending enough time teaching kids core values. I'm talking about honesty, respect, responsibility, kindness, cooperation, learning to get along with others. It's understandable because teachers have so much on their plate. And state testing is so paramount in all the schools in every state, not just New Jersey, but in Pennsylvania as well. And teachers are very focused on making sure that students are learning academics and doing well on the state tests. Where can we find the time? I always knew that I wanted to help educators, parents, and grandparents as well teach core values in a fun, easy way. So after I retired, I started thinking about writing in the beginning, a children's book. And I ended up writing, Don't Be That Kid at School. May I show the book?
Oh, I would love it. Yes, please, please, please.
Don't Be That Kid at School. Since it's Don't Be That Kid, it's all our characters are goats because little goats are kids. And every single scene in this book depicts a different character trait. I always like to talk about one of my favorite scenes. Isolation is a very big issue in schools today, whether it's elementary school, high school, or middle school. Isolation can even be a big issue in companies and corporations. So one of my favorite scenes, I hope you can see this, is that everyone is out in the schoolyard and our kid is not letting another play basketball. He's the one with the basketball, so he's making the decisions. You read the scene, which is just a fun little scene to read, but then you get to talk about the scene. How does this kid who's being excluded feel? Let's not forget the other kids who are waiting to play. They have a responsibility to him to make sure he's included. And lastly, why is the kid doing it? So just in one scene alone, there are 3 conversations to have with children about how you feel when you're not included, what responsibility you have when you are included to someone who's on the fringe, And then let's talk about why we think someone will exclude another person, because they have an issue themselves, and that's why they're doing it.
Yeah, and I love just that little piece of your book, Lois, speaks to my heart, because working with autistic children for so long, there's so much to be said about that, because in an ideal world, I'd love to see more inclusion and talking about how we can include our friends, and not just children that are sitting next to us, but the children that might act a little bit different or be a little bit different. Let's have conversations about how we can include them in play. And so it opens it up to such a big dynamic that I think that this is why I wanted to have this conversation around about what you're doing, because more people just need to know about this. And it's not just the books, but you have Don't Be That Kid at School, but you also have other books as well.
Yes. When I was writing the Don't Be That Kid at School book, I decided that I was going to create a teacher's resource guide that goes with the book. So every single scene of the Don't Be That Kid at School book has activities separated into grades K1, 2, 3, and grades 4, 5. The resource guide begins with establishing expectations in your classroom, and I give you a couple of days of activities that when you conclude those few days, your students will have a clear understanding of what you expect from them and what they can expect from you. It's a two-way street. They have to feel confident and secure and safe in your classroom. So, and then each scene, I also have a pledge, a Don't Be That Kid pledge, where students can write down something that they want to achieve personally and academically. And then I have, and let me show it to you because it's great fun to do as a family. I have a Don't Be That Kid crest. So students can go home and work with their families and talk about, what does our family value? Does our family believe in hard work, loyalty, taking care of each other, God, honesty? So working as a family, you can create this crest, and it's very exciting. And then students can come back to school and talk about the crest and what each individual crest means. Now, if you don't have a family that you can do a crest with, then make it a personal crest and do it for yourself. So it works either way. The bottom line for me is we have to teach children at a very early age to appreciate each other, be kind to each other, learn how to cooperate together, and learn how to work well. Many people, after the Don't Be That Kid at School book came out, asked me to do one for home. So I wrote Don't Be That Kid at Home. So now our kid is misbehaving at home. And a typical C is learning how to be a good sport. Our kid is playing a board game. He's losing. He's unhappy. He throws the game in the air and walks away. That is happening right now, today, as we are talking with a group of children playing a game. That's a perfect opportunity to talk about good sportsmanship.
Yeah.
What do we say to someone when we're winning? What do we say when we're not winning?
And that's why I wanted to have another reason why I wanted to have the conversation is because it's so relevant, but you've created this narrative and this curriculum around how to be a better kid, right? Not just in the home setting, but in the school setting as well. And even when we talked a week or two ago, when we first met, that family crest really kind of hit home for me, because I have never had that conversation with my own children, and sitting down and, you really have these values that you convey to your children, but in different ways. It's never a direct conversation that you have, because My daughter's 12 now, and if she has an appointment or some, not a, how can I put it? If she's already scheduled to hang out with one of her friends, but then another friend comes along and says they'd like to do something that might be perceived as a little bit more fun, it's right. You have to stay loyal to your commitments, your original commitments. And so that's what we've really tried to talk to her about. Well, we've never had a solid conversation around that. And so I think providing a framework for people to make it something that's tangible and that it's fun and engaging, I think that's just fantastic. So what I wanted to ask,
situation is so perfect to have a conversation, for us to have a conversation about. Let's look at it. My God, what a wonderful aha moment you can have with a child, because that's a dilemma. Your daughter has a dilemma and she has to make some choices. And you can elicit responses from her. How I personally would approach it is this. Someone else, so you have plans and someone else asks you to do something. Is it possible that she can join you and the other girl in the first plans? Is it possible that the other girl can join in the new plans? Nothing is ever cast in stone. So that's a number one possibility. A number two possibility is to always be honest. Always be honest. And say to your friend, I would love to join you. I've already made plans. You don't have to go into detail. It's not necessary to go into detail. But I've made other plans. Why don't we plan something right now? And do it right now. Adults need to do that because adults sometimes feel left out also. But it's a very mature behavior to be able to try and figure something like that out. And maybe the second activity was to go to an event with the family. Well, you can't invite another person to that. So you just say thank you, because the bottom line is you did make plans with this other girl. Now, let's say this is something very exciting that you've been invited to. And it is a once in a lifetime opportunity. They've invited you to go to see someone sing, you know what I mean? Some event somewhere. And you may never get another opportunity. Then I think if it's that important, nothing is ever black and white. It's always gray. If it's that special and that important, talk to the first girl, because maybe the first girl just wanted to go to the mall with you, something you can do another day. And this other thing is special. So you pick up the phone and you talk to your friend and you say to your friend, I need your help. I have a dilemma. I like you. You validate your friends. See, that's a skill that we can teach our children. First thing you do is you validate your friend. And I love going to the mall with you. But Janie Smith called me and I have an opportunity to go to a great concert with her. She has an extra ticket. Would it be okay with you if we make another date and I go with Janie to this concert? I'll never get another opportunity.
Well, and I think what you're talking about too, Lois, is people skills. And for the last 2.5 years, we've all been indoors. And we haven't had to use our people skills very much in person with one another and have conflict resolution. And with May being Teacher Appreciation Month, what we're going to do is we're going to have a giveaway on our Facebook page for your book. So we're gonna get them your Don't Be That Kid at School and the curriculum that goes with it. and give it away to one of the teachers that follows us on our page. Because as we work with more schools and daycares and Head Starts and early Head Starts to teach them about holistic approaches to autism, I think your curriculum is fundamental in working with their peers and to understand inclusion and how to be a better friend, and not just with children with autism, but in general, because it's severely lacking now, and not just for children. I think a lot of us as well really need to revisit how to reconnect with people just because we've been out of touch for so long. So
thank you.
yeah.
I think that's great. You know, the important point is you tell your friend the truth.
Mhm.
You don't call her and say, I don't feel well and I can't go to the mall, or I have to go someplace with my parents and I can't go with you. You tell the truth, because you'll lose a friend if you don't.
Well,
Someone
right.
will find out, and it's not worth it. And if you value that friendship, you'll be honest. So, life is filled with choices. Another scene in the book, both books, is about making good choices. And the right choice for your daughter might be to tell the friend with the concert no, because she's already made a commitment. Every child is different and every relationship is different. And we need to explain that to our children so that they understand that every single thing has a solution, usually, and it depends on what it is, what the issue is, and you have to be able to handle it depending. You have to know this first friend. Is she shy? Are we brand new friends? Would it hurt her feelings? You have to assess that. That's a skill that if
Right.
you can learn that, you'll have it for your whole life. It's one thing to make a friend. It's entirely another to keep a friend.
Well, and if you think too about the bigger implications of what you're teaching, those skills translate so beautifully. As an entrepreneur, I appreciate them because if you can learn those skills early on of trustworthiness, credibility, standing by your word, that's going to prove to be so efficacious for you when you are an adult and you are working as a part of a team and you have great communication skills, you have great problem solving skills. That's going to put you above and beyond some of the other people. And so it really sets you up for so much more in life than just beyond learning these skills in school. And I just think it's fantastic.
I always say that people who never learn to share, I have a scene in the Don't Be That Kid at Home book about sharing, and it's a perfect opportunity to talk about the importance of sharing. People who never learn to share as children have difficult times working in groups. They're in a company, they have a team meeting, they work with a team. They are not forthcoming usually with ideas. They're afraid someone's going to steal their idea. Sharing is about trust, and you have to trust that other person to share something with them. You have to trust that they're going to take care of it and that they're going to give it back, unless you give it to them as a gift. So making sure that children learn how to share. Sharing should begin when children are very young with their parents. And I always say to parents, use the word share. I'd like to share a story with you. I'd like to share this book with you. Use the word. I'd like to share my favorite outfit with you, for 12-year-olds, if she can wear your clothes. Yeah. And then you say to your child at 2 and 3, can I borrow your doll, your whatever, your toy, whatever? They're not going to want to even give it to mom or dad. Believe me, kids are very, very hesitant to do it. And then you say to them, I'm going to give it back to you right before lunch, right before dinner. So they have a concept.
Mhm.
And then right before dinner, you give it back and say, thank you for sharing your doll.
Yeah. Well, I would love to share what you're doing, Lois, with the rest of the world. So what are some ways that people can order these resources for their schools or daycares?
You can go right on my website, which is www.don'tbethatkid.net. No apostrophe and don't, just don'tbethatkid.net. If you want a signed copy, contact me at Lois, L-O-I-S, at don'tbethatkid.net. And we'll talk about me sending you a signed copy. Sure, sure. You know, the next to last scene in both books, our kid in the school book wakes up in the morning and he looks in the mirror. In the home book, he's in a timeout and he looks in the mirror and he asks himself, who am I? And what kind of a kid do I want to be moving forward? How do I have to change? And then in both books, I have a collage of him doing the correct behavior. So you go back in the book, find the scene. How does the kid have to change? You see, the beauty of making the characters goats is that children will readily talk about how the goat has to change. And you're not making it personal with your child. You transition it to make it personal with your child if your child has an issue in any one of these skill areas. But it's all about the goat, and then you can move forward. Children will tell you a whole lot of things about how this goat has to change. And then all of a sudden you say, gee, have you ever done that? And they'll go, oh, yeah, I probably have. Yeah. Because all kids have done every single thing in this book. All adults have done everything in this book.
Yeah, and I think that rings true because it's not just kids that can learn from these things, it's adults. There's times that we really need some self-reflection and understanding how we can be better. And that's interestingly enough, that not only can the kids learn, but it's a time for the adults. Because when I'm reading books to the kids that I work with or have worked in the school setting, you have those moments where you're like, oh, I guess I could have done that better in XYZ situation, right? You have your own moments of self-reflection. So I think the work you're doing not only will have an impact on the youth, but the adults that are there to teach them and guide them through life. So Lois, I want to appreciate you. I appreciate you so much for your time and consideration for doing this interview. And if you're watching this and you want more information, reach out to Lois on www.don'tbethatkid.net, or you can reach her again at Lois at don'tbethatkid. And .net, yes, .net. So thank you so much for your time, Lois. And I can't wait to see how this takes off, because it certainly will into more and more school districts. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been great. Thank you.
Likewise.